Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Some 400 reenactors from all over the country, wearing historic Polish and Soviet military uniforms, gathered in Warsaw to take part in Sunday's 12th annual Cat in Shadow March. The march is held in tribute to the Polish officers murdered by the Soviets in Katyn and other places of execution in the east.
Today's march commemorated victims of the Katyn massacre. Reenactors impersonated specific people murdered by the Soviets.
I am impersonating a Polish World War II pilot. I am impersonating a Polish World War II pilot, Janina Lewandowska. She was the only woman murdered in Katyn. She was a daughter of the general of the Greater Polish Uprising, Józef Dowbor-Musiński. She also was a soldier in the Polish Armed Forces. She became a soldier in September 1939. She was taken to the concentration camp in Kozielsk. She was shot on her 32nd birthday.
Reenactors wearing uniforms of the officers of the Polish Army, the Border Protection Corps, and the State Police walked silently through the Royal Road, the Old Town, and Krasiński Square. The silence during the march has a special dimension to commemorate the people murdered in the Katyn massacre, because silence is somehow a cry over their memory.
The goal of the march is to show that we remember the people killed in Katyn and to light a candle and to think about them in silence. We want to commemorate the people murdered in Katyn and other places, especially officers of the Polish Armed Forces. We have to remember that officers of the Polish Armed Forces weren't the only people killed there, but also the Polish intelligentsia, officials, police officers, artists and other important people who could have helped in rebuilding the Polish state after the war.
This is the brother of my grandma, Jerzy Roman Nowicki, of the 26th Greater Poland Ulan Regiment. He was shot in the back of his head in Katyn. If we talk about murdered people, we have also to remember about their families, because his wife and daughter were transported to Siberia and no one heard anything about them ever again.
Women and children wearing costumes from the 40s walked after the reenactors during the march. They wanted to symbolize the lonely wives and children of those people murdered at Katyn.
I felt like I had to do it, to impersonate a lonely woman who lost her lover in Katyn. We wanted to pay tribute to women who lost their husbands, brothers, fathers. They didn't know what was happening to them. They had to do everything by themselves. They had to raise children on their own. They didn't have money. I think they deserve to be honored.
The Katyn Shadow March is organized every year one day before the Remembrance Day of the Katyn massacre. It is held to commemorate 22,000 Polish officers murdered by the Soviets in 1940.
Over 100 soldiers from the NATO forces based in Poland visited the Polish Army Museum in Warsaw. While in the capital, they will also visit the museum of Blessed Father Jerzy Popiełuszko, who was murdered by the communist security forces. The event was organized by the Polish National Foundation.
The American soldiers started their visit in the Polish Army Museum.
It's just amazing how much history you guys have. The history from this country is older than our country.
The goal of their visit is to get a better knowledge of Polish history and culture.
To me, what really caught my attention was the cavalry. Just seeing the artifacts, the armor that they used back in the days, that really caught my attention.
During their visit to the Polish Army Museum, the NATO soldiers found out about the Polish Hussars, the partitions, Katyn, and the destruction of Warsaw.
I learned about the heritage. It was very beautiful to see not only like the armor, but also to see who was the king and the queen, and basically the history from 18th century into like today.
The visit of the NATO soldiers is taking place as part of this Zwiastun project run by the Polish National Foundation.
During our last visit, we were at Gdansk, and we were able to visit the Westerplatte, where World War II battle began. So that was very special.
The soldiers paid a visit to the Warsaw Uprising Museum and met combatants yesterday.
My mom actually makes quite a few Polish dishes, and we didn't know. Like me and her, we kind of was like, so what do they eat over there? Are you going to be eating okay? I was like, I don't know what they eat. And she's like, well, they eat pierogies. I was like, oh. She's like, have you ever had a pierogi? I'm like, no. She's like, tell me how they are.
The Nordic Polish Battle Group is stationed in the region of Masuria. It includes soldiers from the United States, Great Britain, Romania, and Croatia. The visit will last until tomorrow. The Museum of Blessed Father Jerzy Popiełuszko will be the last stop on their visit.
Poland is to purchase the latest United States F-35 combat aircraft, according to the country's defense minister, Mariusz Błaszczak. A report recently submitted to the United States House of Representatives stated that future potential customers include European allies such as Poland, Greece, Romania and Spain that wish to improve their defences in the face of a strengthening Russia. The news about a possible F-35 purchase by Poland first surfaced in early March when President Andrzej Duda mentioned the idea in an interview with a public radio station. Duda pointed out that the air forces have to be modernised and Soviet-era aircraft replaced. After weeks of power cuts and limited access to water, tens of thousands of Venezuelans took to the streets on Saturday, 6th of April, to back Juan Guaido, head of the opposition-controlled National Assembly, who is recognised as the legitimate president of Venezuela by 54 governments, and to protest against President Nicolas Maduro, whom they accuse of wrecking the economy. Venezuelans, already suffering from hyperinflation and widespread shortages of food and medicine, say the crisis in the chaotic country has worsened over the past month. That was when crippling nationwide power outages began to leave vast swathes of territory in the dark for days at a time, cutting off water supplies and cell phone services. Guaido, head of the opposition-controlled National Assembly and recognised as Venezuela's legitimate head of state by most Western nations, called for Saturday's marches to mark the start of what he has billed as a new wave of definitive protests to oust Maduro. We didn't come here just to demand water and electricity, which are necessary. We came here to demand liberty, democracy, food, and a future education. Guaido invoked the constitution to assume the interim presidency in January, denouncing Maduro as a usurper after he began a second term following a 2018 national election widely considered to have been fraudulent. Maduro, who retains the support of military and allies including Russia and China, has derided Guaido as a US puppet and said he will face justice. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for Poland Daily Business, weather and more besides. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
Good evening, I'm Paulina Otterstein and welcome again to Poland Daily Weather. Tonight the temperatures will vary from 6 degrees in the area of Olsztyn to 9 degrees in the western parts of the country, also in Szczecin and Koszalin. Warsaw will see 8 degrees tonight, Łódź 7. And now let's check the forecast for tomorrow in Poland. So tomorrow, as we can see, nice and sunny in many parts of the country, especially in the eastern parts and also in Olsztyn, central Poland and around Koszalin and Szczecin. Koszalin will be the coolest tomorrow with 15 degrees and the warmest will be Krakow with 21 degrees. Now let's check the forecast for the upcoming days. So on Tuesday, up to 16 degrees in the southwest and 17 degrees in the southeast. The minimum will be 8 degrees in the northeast. And on Wednesday, much cooler, as we can see, only 6 degrees will be seen in the northeast. Showers will be appearing almost all over the country. Let's check Thursday. As we can see, 11 degrees in central Poland, so much warmer at 14 degrees in the southeast will be the maximum and 5 will be the minimum in the northwest with some showers as well. This is all for tonight. Thank you and see you soon.
Welcome to Poland Daily Business. I'm Nicholas Richardson and these are the business headlines. The Polish mining and gas extraction company PGNiG has connected a methane-powered electricity generator with a nominal output of 0.9 megawatts to the electricity grid. The gas is being extracted as part of an experimental extraction from coal seams in Upper Silesia. Removal of the methane from the mines will improve the safety of miners. Since 2016, PGNiG and the Polish Geological Institute have been conducting research in Gilowice in the province of Silesia, where the gas blocker was installed. The electricity produced is being fed to the Tauron distribution network. The
The World Bank said on Friday, 5th of April, that it expects Polish economic growth to slow to 4% this year from over 5% in 2018. Government plans to spend more on social programmes may accelerate economic growth in Poland in the short run. However, this will most likely lead to a widening of the budget deficit, which is already projected to increase to 1.4% of GDP in 2019 compared to 0.5% last year, and to increase further to 1.6% of GDP in 2020. Those were the business headlines. Stay with us for Alexander Wyszewski and his guests, but from me, it's good night.
And our guest tonight is Bernard Otterstein, President of Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Poland. Sir, thank you for coming to the Poland Daily Business Edition.
Thank you.
Well, actually, what is the relation between Poland and Canada right now in the economic dimension?
Well, in general, the relations between Canada and Poland are excellent in every way. And economically, there's no difference. It's really, really good.
Can we name the Canadian companies that are operating in Poland and bringing benefits, and the Polish companies that are doing business in Canada?
Well, certainly there are some big names. I mean, I'll mention a few. We have here Pratt & Whitney Canada, we have MB Aerospace, we have Bombardier, big companies, McCain, and others in the high-tech and IT and transportation sectors. As well as food processing and other things. And then we have, on the other hand, some Polish companies in mining and energy, such as KGHM and Orlen Upstream, who are acquiring assets in Canada and expanding their resource base, which is an important thing on the upstream side or on the resource side for Polish companies that need to get some of the benefits of Canada's resource base.
Right. Canada is a unique place in the world, huge natural resources,
exactly.
Friendly atmosphere and nice place. Poland, as a part of European Union, has a very special relationship with Canada, and the law is the same from Canadian point of view here as in Germany or in France. Is Poland for Canadian business a little bit more interesting than other countries?
Well, Poland has something that other countries don't have in Europe right now, and that is a lot of talented young people, an incredible resource in that sense. Something that Poland is outstanding for at this time in the world are its people and their abilities, and that's something that I think few other countries in Europe can offer to that extent right now. So Poland certainly has big advantages for Canadian and for a lot of other international companies because of the skills and the abilities and the motivation of its people.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's say in the international trade, the services and goods are the things that we measure to say what is the atmosphere, what is the level of relationships. What Polish companies can offer to the Canadian economy?
I think that Polish companies can offer quite a lot, especially since Canada and the European Union signed the comprehensive agreement on comprehensive economic and trade agreement last year. It's in provisional force, but it allows Polish companies not only to export their products to Canada, which can be very attractive, those products, because Canada doesn't have perhaps all of the things that Poland has in terms of innovative new products that small and medium-sized Polish companies are producing. On the other hand, Polish companies can also participate in procurement opportunities with Canadian government bodies, from the municipal to the provincial to the federal level. And they can participate on an equal footing with Canadian companies in many sectors. So that's something very interesting. That's a service perhaps or a product offering, but public tenders are open for Polish and for all European companies in Canada
Do you know any examples of Polish companies taking active part in tenders in Canada?
Not recently, but I do know some historical cases of Polish companies building bridges, for example, in Canada. But I could imagine that Polish companies could really engage in a lot of service opportunities.
So this famous Polish hydraulic or Polish plumber can go from France to Canada.
Yeah, he certainly can. But there's an ocean in between, and so the distance is longer for smaller operators. It's more an opportunity for bigger companies, I think. But having said that, I think there are also the opportunities for exporters and other SMEs to take advantage of the CETA opportunity.
Right. Well, we are. Very soon there will be hot summer and vacations, at least in Poland and in Canada, by the way, at the same time. Is there growing touristic movement between Poland and Canada? Like Poles are going for vacation to Canada?
That's difficult to gauge right now. However, the interest in Canada has always been strong from the Polish side. As you probably know, we have about 1 million Polish Canadians.
Right,
so
but this is like historical reasons.
The historical ties are strong, and a lot of Poles actually travel to Canada to visit their relatives. And I think that tourism from Poland to Canada is in many ways related to that. But I have heard of a lot of people actually going now just to see Canada's natural sights and wonders, which are really, really amazing.
Or sail on the big lakes instead of crowded Missouri. You can take the lakes in Canada.
The beauty of the Canadian wilderness is that you can enjoy it by yourself or in a small group of people with nature, and that's something that's perhaps unusual in Europe.
But you have to take a gun to the forest.
I actually never have, but it's easy to come into contact with wild animals such as bears, and you have to be careful.
Yeah, because they may not understand your jokes.
They may not understand Polish, for example, or other strange activities.
Bernard Otterstein, Polish Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Poland. Thank you very much, sir, for coming to our tiny show, and hopefully you will come next time to talk about more specific businesses that are definitely developing between our countries.
Yes, there's a lot to talk about. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you've seen Poland Daily Business Edition. Join us next time.
Hello, I'm Paulina Otterstein and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. First, let's see what will happen tomorrow in Poland. As we can see, the maximum temperature will be 21 degrees in the area of Krakow, 20 degrees will be seen in Katowice, also in Zielona Góra, Bydgoszcz and Poznań. The minimum temperature will be 15 degrees in Koszalin, and the most sun will be seen also there, as well as in Szczecin and in the eastern parts of the country. Now let's check the situation in Europe for tomorrow. So tomorrow in Europe, nice and warm in London as well as in Paris, but some clouds may appear there. 11 degrees will be seen in Dublin and 11 degrees in Madrid, so quite a significant cool down over there. The coolest will be Helsinki with 6 degrees and some showers as well. Also 8 degrees in Moscow, 9 degrees in Stockholm and Oslo. This is all for tonight. Thank you.
Mike Trebacz, the founder of Cruising Krakow, was born in Krakow. He left Poland at an early age with the rest of the communist-era exodus and moved to Vancouver, Canada. Mike completed a degree in philosophy at the University of British Columbia, sold his car, and moved to the opposite end of the cultural spectrum, Spain. He worked in Barcelona, but after 3 years of beaches, sunshine, and sangria, returned to the city of his birth. Mike has been running Cruising Krakow since 2006.
Welcome to Poland Daily Culture. So, we're in Krakow and I'm joined here today by Michał. Michał, you'd like to tell us a little something about what you do here?
For the last 13 years, we've been organizing Segway and bicycle tours here in Krakow, Poland, and around in the outskirts. And today we're going to show you some of Kazimierz and why it's significant.
Okay, great. What's the advantage of using a Segway then?
For one, it's not really a categorized vehicle here, so we can ride anywhere. Unlike bicycles where you can't ride on the sidewalks at all, here with the Segways, we can ride on the sidewalk, we can ride on the roads, the pavements, it's all open game. And Kazimierz is a great city in terms of, district of the city in terms of its accessibility on foot or on bike or on Segway, but not by car. A lot of it's restricted.
Should I be nervous at all first time on a Segway? Be honest with me.
You shouldn't, but you probably will for the first few seconds, but then it'll become very intuitive and very natural.
All right, okay. I think I'm about ready for my first time.
So this is an X2 Segway. It's bigger than the regular I2 Segways. It's off-road, so it's got bigger wheels and a sturdier metal frame. Better for old cobblestone streets like we find here in Kazimierz. First thing you have to know with the Segway is that it's turned on. You see all these green lights flashing? It means it's ready to be stepped on.
Okay.
When it is on, you can't let it go because it's going to run away.
Okay.
So if ever you want to stop and park, you just got to lean it against something.
Uh-huh.
So first thing you have to know with the Segway is getting on always from the rear, grab the handlebars with both hands, then step on the platform more or less in the middle. So at first it may seem a little strange. Again, relax. The more relaxed you are, the better it'll function. Because the whole concept of the Segway is by leaning both forwards and backwards, it'll move forwards and backwards. So I can let go of the handlebars, I apply pressure to my toes, and it goes a little further back, and it'll stop, and even further back, it'll go backwards. Whereas the steering has nothing to do with your weight, it's all in the handlebars. So I can lean to the right, steer to the left, and vice versa.
Okay.
So you see, it's not like a bicycle. You're not turning the handlebars like this. You're just leaning the rod to whatever way you want to move to. And you're going to find that the more you lean, the faster it'll go. So it'll accelerate. So if you are riding along, you have to do an emergency stop. All you got to do is squat, put all your weight to the back, hold on to the handlebars, and you will not fall off. And lastly, probably the most difficult part for some people is getting off the Segway.
Okay.
What's important when getting off the Segway is that the steering rod stays in the same position. So what you want to do is step directly behind you, but extending your arms as you step back in one motion. Because if you don't, it's very natural to step back, but you pull on the steering and it runs back into you.
So arms straight and then...
Extension as you step back in one motion.
As you do it, okay.
The firm offers bike and Segway tours for which roads are not necessary. You can blaze the trails, charge the open fields, and trek through the dirt. These off-road beasts have a wide base platform for maximum comfort, deep tread tires to traverse all sorts of terrain, and will go up to 20 kilometers per hour for about 20 kilometers. Jon Carter and Mike Trebacz will be taking you for a tour around Krakow. Before we begin, let's first see how Jon gets to grips with the basics of operating a Segway.
All right, so we're gonna give you a try now.
All righty.
So remember, hands first.
Okay.
Feet. Okay, relax, get your balance. Now try taking your hands off just to feel the balance. Okay, good, hands on. And now lean towards me. Stop here. And back. Good, stop, never turn when you go back, that's the most difficult thing. Okay, try doing a little circle here.
Okay. And then to the left.
Yep. All right.
Okay.
How about we go a little faster, try accelerating and then emergency stopping?
All right.
And stop. There you go.
Oh, so maybe I need to lean a
back.
bit more.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
maybe I'll have one more go at emergency stopping then.
Sure, you want to take it this way?
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
So you can see it's very intuitive, but it just takes a little getting used to.
So maybe I'll have a go at the dreaded stepping off.
Yes, the worst part.
All right then, so...
So directly behind you, extending your arms as you step back. There you go.
Okay, okay.
And then remember, yeah, careful you don't let it go.
Ah, right,
but,
yeah.
I got it. So,
I think we're good to go,
You think you're good to go? Okay, we'll get you your very own personal transportation device. I'll get another one on. They all come with these keys so that you don't run off with them.
Okay, so Michał, I think we're about ready to make a move. We're going to Kazimierz first.
That's right. Today, Kazimierz is a district of Krakow, but originally its own separate city, found on an island on the middle of the Vistula River.
Okay.
So that's why right now we're standing in the main square, which just like Krakow had its own main square, so did Kazimierz. A square, a town hall, which is what's left behind us. Today it's the Museum of Ethnography, and a couple churches. Now a lot of people confuse Kazimierz with the Jewish quarter, but as you can see, this is not the case with all these churches around. So we're standing in the Christian side of Kazimierz, and in a moment I'm going to take you to the Jewish side.
All right, fantastic. Let's do it.
All right, let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we are at Hotel Europejski, one of the most expensive hotels in all of Poland. The secret to keeping such a prestigious status relies on preserving history and providing luxurious accommodation. Today we will learn more about one of the most exclusive jewels of Warsaw.
Our guest today is Mr. Ksawery Wąsowski, a direct descendant of Aleksander Przeździecki, who decided to build Warsaw's first luxury hotel of international standards in 1855. After returning to Poland from the US in the early 90s, Mr. Wąsowski has been documenting the long and interesting history of Hotel Europejski.
One of the qualities known to the communist regime is the confiscation of properties, and as I know, this hotel did not avoid that fate either. I was wondering, what did the family go through and how did they manage to reclaim the property?
Well, that's a long story, many years. In 1948, when it was taken away from the family, actually it was taken away from the company.
Okay.
Of which the family were members. At that point, Stefan Czetwertyński, who was really running the restaurant and the leader of the company, had some bad years. Eventually, he was thrown in jail. He spent during the 1950s in jail. Ultimately, he was given the option of either rest in jail or leave the country. So he chose the latter and left the country. So he was essentially banished. During that time, the hotel underwent many changes. First, it was given to the army. So the military political academy was established in 1951. After 2 years of reconstruction. It lasted here until 1954, so there were many changes in order to make the building a military academy, including in this wing here to build a gymnasium, which meant not including one of the floors, so it was taller. The building proved to be inadequate for the needs of a military academy in the middle of the city, because, for instance, in the morning the soldiers had to run out on the streets for their daily exercises, which was impractical. So they moved out in 1954. The building was empty for about 2 years, although Jewish refugees from the Soviet Union did pass through and were housed in the empty rooms of the building. In 1956, it was given to Orbis. It was decided that the building was to be returned as a hotel. Orbis, being the national tourist agency and the hotel agency, was given charge of that, and it took them 6 years to redo the building, readapt it for the needs of a hotel, to install a new floor where the gymnasium was. and hired a staff and whatnot. So that opened in 1962. And basically it was the Hotel Europejski until 2005. Some years it was attached to the Hotel Bristol as a company. Right. Some years it was with the Hotel Victoria across the square, but under the umbrella of Orbis the whole time. There were many people working here, staff that grew also very close, fond of the building. They grew attached to it. There was the Europejski family, right. Which to this day many former employees reminisce very fondly about. I feel that spirit of the building that they must have had. So that lasted until 2005. During that time, communism ended, and our family started thinking about ways of getting it back, that there must be a way. My grandmother wrote to an uncle here, an aunt from Paris wrote to an uncle here. We started figuring out ways. We reconstituted the company, HESA, which was the legal entity which was allowed to get the hotel back. Right. It took 14 years, but we finally got it back in 2005.
So it's not even that long ago.
Well, now it's been another 14 years. So we started the process 28 years ago.
Oof.
Yeah.
They're a long struggle.
And it was out of the family for, 40-some years.
After the hotel opened to guests in 1857, until the Soviets nationalized it after the war, the hotel was a family-run affair. Generation after generation, knowledge about the business would be handed down and family members would increasingly be well educated in the hotel business, including in some of the world's most famous hotel schools.
So you were saying in the earlier segments that your great-great-great-grandfather established this whole hotel, and I was wondering how the establishment managed to stay within the family.
Right, so Aleksander Przezdziecki, he was the brain behind the whole idea. Right. He began with two brothers, Władysław and Ksawery Wąsowski, who went into the project at the very beginning. And it stayed in those families, the Przezdziecki and Wąsowski families, until 1912. At that point, the Wąsowski family had run out of heirs that would have a majority stake. They just decided to sell the shares that were handed down, and they sold them to the grandsons of Aleksander Przezdziecki, Stefan and Reinhold Przezdziecki. So at that point, there was the two of them, their father, Jan, and their cousin, Zofia Przezdziecka, my great-grandmother, who married Seweryn Czetwertyński. She, in fact, had 50% of the hotel because she was an only child. Right. And being that she had half of the original shares, so she was the most important shareholder in the whole enterprise. On the Przezdziecki side, there were more relatives, so it was split more. During this time, the hotel was leased to other companies, but the background as individuals was, let's say, on the Wąsowski and Przezdziecki families. Once the change happened in 1912, it was under the Przezdziecki family exclusively. Zofia Przezdziecka, my great-grandmother, married in 1898 Seweryn Czetwertyński, who was a well-known political figure. He was in the Duma of 1906. He was in the Sejm several times in the Polish parliament. He was a vice marshal of the Sejm, so he was very well known. He was a member of many societies, including Warsaw's Bicycle Society. Anyway, so he was well known and respected, and in 1921, he decided the best way to move forward is to establish this company, HESA, Hotel Europejski Spółka Akcyjna, which I mentioned. So that was set up with those members of the family being the principal owners. So that began in April of 1921. And it was thus until it was confiscated in 1948. Several stories about Ksawery Wąsowski. One that I like, a personal story, is apart from his official capacity as one of the owners and the head of the Hesa hotel company, he liked to have the personal touch with the hotel guests, with the people. So not only did he head the company, but from his estate, Suchowola in eastern Poland, where cognacs and gins and vodkas were produced at the distillery there, they were brought here, they were sold in a hotel, in the restaurant, but also produce from his farms was brought here, and that was served in the restaurant, what today we would call like a farmer's market produce, so natural grown. So he made sure that that aspect was taken care of, the gastronomical aspect. And then just a personal one, he, after work in Parliament, sometimes he would come by dressed in his finest outfits, and he would borrow a waiter's napkin, drape it over his arm, and walk around the restaurant pretending to be a waiter. Of course, everyone knew who he was. There was no getting past that. But that personal touch and greeting the guests or offering them something or just polite conversation was his way of being more in touch with the people in a hotel. And that made the whole aspect of the family owning it not so distant. It wasn't a company somewhere in some office somewhere. It was, he was the representative of the person, the most important one here amongst you, serving you, helping, asking if you needed something. So that aspect made a huge impression on the people, I think, and it set a tone for the way that the guests were treated. There was a personal touch, there was attention to detail, and a genuine interest in the people that were here.
Hotel Europejski has 150 years and counting of very interesting history. And the fact that the history is preserved and the personal touch of the place is what gave it the standard for the best hotel in Poland and has set the standard ever since. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Hello and welcome to Poland Daily. We're on an excursion to the city of Łódź. It's right in the center of the country. Known as the Polish Manchester, it's a city of art and industry. And that's where we are for this series of episodes. Łódź is famous for factories making all kinds of things, as we'll see. In its heyday, it supplied textiles to the whole of Europe. In post-World War II Poland, Łódź also became a factory of dreams. It was the site of the Warsaw Film School at Łódź, and it earned the city the sobriquet of Hollywood. That's right, the Hollywood of Poland. The film school produced such top talents as Roman Polanski, Andrzej Wajda, and Krzysztof Kieślowski, and many others, as we'll see. There are more superlatives in this city, about 75 miles southwest of Warsaw, the capital. Łódź boasts the largest shopping center in Poland, Manufaktura. It's made out of an old factory complex. That's the largest shopping center in Poland. It also boasts the longest pedestrian street in the country, Piotrkowska, where you will find all manner of restaurants, clubs, and just about everything else you'd expect on a pedestrian street, including a statue of Arthur Rubinstein, the famous pianist who was from Łódź. And the pièce de résistance, marrying both technology and art, is the Science and Technology Museum next to the railway station. This is a world-class museum. It looks like something that belongs in the Smithsonian Institution. It's interactive and impressive. That's Łódź, And that's where we are on Poland Daily Travel, your destination for perhaps the best travel about Poland you'll find anywhere. Poland Daily Travel. Like us on YouTube and like us on Facebook. We like you. Watch us now. Well, here we are. We're at the Łódź Film School. You can see because it's written right here in Polish. What does it say?
Leon Schiller.
Oh, yeah.
In the name of.
In the name of Leon Schiller.
In Łódź.
Read it in Polish. What does it say?
Państwowa Wyższa Szkoła Filmowa, Telewizyjna i Teatralna imienia Leona Schillera w Łodzi.
Okay, which means the people's, or the national school of
Higher education of film, television, and theater. In the name of Leon Schiller.
Who was the guy who started this?
Yeah.
He was
in
a famous
1948, was
1948. That's exactly right. So that makes this one of the oldest film schools in the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently.
Okay.
I think in the old days they didn't really have film schools. Because, I mean, did Charlie Chaplin go to a film school? I don't think so.
I don't think so, no.
Did Jimmy Stewart, the actor, did he go to a film school?
Did Audrey Hepburn go
No, Audrey Hepburn was a model. Boy, I can use all my celebrity knowledge now.
I'm good at that.
People watching this are going, who's Audrey Hepburn? They have no idea. I don't even think Polish people know who Leon Schiller is unless they're in the school. But anyway, the Łódź Film School. Oh, right. Here's a famous director. It's
Wojciech Has.
Yeah. Wojciech Has. He's one of the famous Polish directors. But here's the thing. After the war, in World War II, this school was started to promote Polish film, not just within the Soviet Union, of which Poland was a satellite, but within the world at large. So, within a very short time, you have the Polish School of Film emerging from this actual film school, Łódź.
And it was supposed to be in Warsaw first, right? And then
it was supposed to be in Warsaw.
Łódź, yeah.
That's right. And they called it the National Film School of Warsaw in Łódź, didn't they? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot that. So, but anyway, at any rate, you had a number of extremely famous directors who came out of this film school. Among them, Andrzej Wajda, Andrzej Monk, I believe it was Andrzej, but certainly Monk with the last name, and Roman Polanski, and eventually Krzysztof Kieślowski.
As well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and a number of others. I think Agnieszka Holland, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't swear to it, but I believe so. I believe Krzysztof Zanussi. Yeah, I think if you're really famous, you probably went to the Łódź Film School. So the Polish school was created out of this new reality in Poland at the time, which is a post-Republic, post-Nazi occupation, and during a Soviet occupation of the country. But still, filmmakers concentrated as much as they could on representing the Polish history and Polish culture from the early 20th century. And I mean, we see particularly Andrzej Wajda's trilogy of films, Generation and Ashes and Diamonds, and what was the other one called? Canal. So it was Generation, Canal, and Ashes and Diamonds, which, as a trio of films, gives people an idea of what happened during World War II. It's following the Home Army, and then particularly Ashes and Diamonds, I suppose, is the most famous of the films, starring Zbigniew Cybulski, who was the greatest Polish actor, as you know, of this time. He was called the Polish James Dean.
Really? I didn't know that.
He was called that. I remember the first time I saw Ashes and Diamonds was a screening that was organized when I used to be a film journalist. So
was that in Poland?
It was in Poland, yeah, and it was a screening at Film Polski, And I saw a bunch of films over several days. And I could just stay there as long as I wanted and order the films, which was very nice. So I had a chance to really see the library. And one of the film that amazed me the most was Ashes and Diamonds, but not just me, because this is a favorite film of Francis Ford Coppola. It is a favorite film of Martin Scorsese.
Really?
Yes. In fact, when I did an interview with Francis Ford Coppola at his vineyard in Napa Valley, I noticed in the gift shop there were very few CDs there, but one that was there was of Ashes and Diamonds.
Wow.
So it was important enough to him to have it in his gift shop. Okay, so these some seminal films were made out of this school. Of course, Roman Polanski's Knife in the Water. That's a film that came from his inspiration in this school. Perhaps his most famous film of the early, his very famous film of the early days is Three Men in a Wardrobe, or Two Men in a Wardrobe. I can't remember how many men were with the wardrobe, but it's an important film that he made, I believe, when he was finishing school, which signaled his future greatness. Okay, we're going to come back with a little more. We're going to walk through a little bit of the film school, and you can ask me some questions, you know,
sure.
about
Why not?
I don't know the answer probably.
Let's try.
But you could ask me questions. No, but about film.
Let's try.
Not about you know, how far it is to the sun or something, because I don't know. Yeah.
Your favorite type of movies.
My favorite type of movie. We'll be right back. Poland Daily Travel. We're in Łódź, and we're at the film school. These stairs could talk, I'm sure they could tell a lot of stories, because there's a lot of famous directors, actors, people that have gone up and down them, you know.
Have you interviewed any of those directors who studied here?
In fact, I have. Well, Andrzej Wajda a couple of times, who died a couple of years ago. Krzysztof Kieślowski, actually. When I was writing for Variety, I interviewed him on a number of occasions. And of course, he was very famous for his films, the trilogy, Red, White, and Blue, and for Double Life of Veronica. Remember that film? Mm-hmm. And for the
short story about love also?
Yes, a short story about love, a short story about murder, that's right, which was called, it was called the Decalogue, or the Ten Commandments in English, I think. And Kieślowski was an amazing guy, a very shy man, I found, you know, but extremely, he had a wonderful abstract way of looking at things, and he was a very, very sweet guy, actually, I found. He really, really enjoyed, I had a long conversation with him about the double life of Veronica, because I really liked that film, you know. I thought it was very interesting how there's one central character, and then she has a doppelganger, another character which is in a different place. Did you remember the film? Yeah. Did you like it? What did you think of it?
I did like it, yeah, it was interesting. All of his movies are actually great, or were great, because he already died quite a long time ago. But I think he is one of my favorite directors.
Yeah, he was not only amazing as a director, but I think as a person, he was a really fascinating man to talk to. And as I say, very self-effacing, very modest, which brings to my mind Witold Sobocinski. Now, his son, Peter Sobocinski, was filming. He was a DP, director of photography, for some of those, if not all of those, the trilogy films. So maybe some of the others, I don't remember. But I know he was in the trilogy. And of course, he he died while making a film in Alaska in 2001 or 2. That's Peter Sobocinski. But Witold Sobocinski was one of the original jazz men. I mean, he's the patron saint, really, of this place. We didn't see his picture out in that hallway, but some others weren't there too. But Mr. Sobocinski, to me, but Witold Sobocinski to everyone else, I once interviewed him, and he was a fantastic jazz musician in the early days of the 50s, and he was also a brilliant cameraman who worked with a number of Hollywood, on a number of Hollywood movies, a number of great Polish films.
So he was a musician and a cameraman?
That's right. And he was one of the first people to be able to play jazz, because jazz was considered some bourgeois, American type of music. Of course, jazz is anything but bourgeois, but that's the way the communists were portraying it. Jazz is a music of the streets, of course. The classic working man's up by his own bootstraps kind of intellectual, riff. It's anything but bourgeois. But how are you going to please Stalin in the 50s? Anyway, Witold Sobocinski, an amazing guy, and another great figure here. I believe he was rector here. Cameraman, was he rector here? Witold Sobocinski? I believe he was. Yeah. Cameraman.
Didn't say anything.
He's shrugging. I won't name him. He asked me not to name him, so I won't.
Please don't.
Anyway, could go on forever. We're here sitting on these steps where so many people have walked up and down who've made the great Polish films. Any other questions?
Maybe for later.
Maybe for later?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll go take a walk.
Sure.
Okay, Poland Daily Travel. Stick with us.